Vladimir, welcome. Please make yourself at home.
Thank you. I do feel at home in Alaska.
Great.
This is so fun. It's like we are Molotov and Ribbentrop.
Yeah, their Broadway musicals were really something. Anyway, now that we are finally together, let's end the war in Ukraine.
No.
Vladimir.
What?
What did you even come here for?
To continue war in Ukraine.
You just say no to everything.
Try me.
Fine. Is Sydney Sweeney hot?
Trick question. If I say yes, the left will say I'm racist. If I say no, the right will say I'm gay.
You really do understand America. Look, I need to get to a beautiful yes, okay? I promised all these people I would solve this war, and also I have a 3 p.m. tea time.
Ну хорошо, Дончик. You want to talk? Let's talk. This is territory that was for a long time part of Russia, okay? And it was unjustly given away by weak former Russian leader.
I too blame Joe Biden very strongly.
So I just want it back. Is this too much to ask?
Well, you know, the U.S. has very strong interests in this piece of land too, Vladimir.
Why? It's thousands of miles from Washington. America first, Donald. First.
First, what's in it for me? Are there, like, natural resources we could jointly develop?
Yes, lots.
All right, well, it sounds like you can have it. Call the Nobel Peace Committee.
Great. Now that we've agreed to make Alaska Russia again, what else can we...
Wait a minute. Alaska? Hold on. I didn't realize we were... I can't just give you Alaska, not without asking the people who live there. Both of them voted very strongly for me.
Well, they can go across border to new 51st state of Canada.
Well, we still gotta make that happen, but I think we're gonna do it. Okay, now, after all of this, will you stop the war in Ukraine?
No.
Damn it!
Somewhere in the bowels of the city that never sleeps
Kevin McCullough, radio host with Salem Media,
is a man also not sleeping.
Syndicated radio talk show host Kevin McCullough.
And that guy would like a word with you.
Many of you know him as Vostradamus.
Of course that Kevin show is going to be great. The only thing that could be greater, of course, would be that Donald show. We don't have that, so we have that Kevin show.
Featuring the music of Dick Tunney and the Dream in Color Orchestra. Straight ahead, Dr. Michael Shires on the return of the higher ed season, Melanie Israel with an inside look at Planned Parenthood's worst year ever, Andrea Mew fighting to protect children that others have harmed, and Harry Abrahamsen with the money rules you need to know. Plus, sketch comedy from The Puppet Regime, Al Berry and the return of Wolf Jesus, and Max McNown in the Spotlight. And now, from Times Square, not far from the very place that Tish James just lost her teeth, losing them in a bet to Trump in a courtroom, here's the Puppet!
Good weekend to you, friends. And David, I gotta say, usually your slugs are somewhat witty. That one needed a lot of work. We've got a lot to get to, friend, because we do have an immense amount of important stuff to talk about today. Normally, you get to the end of August and everybody kind of calls it the dry spell in the news cycle. Not this year. Not when Trump's in office. It's every day is a work day. Every day is show up and put in the hours day. And we will not be doing anything but that on today's show. Thank you for being here. Lots of things happened this week. Yes, Tish James did lose. She lost. She got humiliated. She got destroyed. But part of it is her own doing. See, Tish James was the Attorney General for the state of New York who along with Judge Engoron, decided this last year or a couple of years ago to try to embarrass Trump so she could get elected. And she ran on a simple campaign, I'll get him. And she didn't have any evidence to get him. She didn't have anything that she could get him for, but she promised to get him. And it worked. She got elected. And then Trump went on trial in Lower Manhattan in what has to be agreed upon by all attorneys I've spoken to, left, right, center, liberal, conservative, indifferent, very passionate. They've all agreed it was the biggest circus they've ever seen. Judge Engoron, I think, should be disbarred. I think he should just be put out to pasture. This was an embarrassment as the judge. If I was a member of the New York bar, I would be so embarrassed that he and I had the same legal qualifications. He should be done. But Tish James, to her credit, she never took moderation as good advice. She said, "No, we're gonna try to make him pay $500 million. That's $500 million. That's more than many Fortune 500 companies make in a year. That's what we're going to hold." And what was the crime? Well, there wasn't one. Who was the victim? There wasn't one. What did he do that hurt anybody? Nothing. What banks did he defraud? Supposedly, because supposedly this was fraudulent activity. They couldn't come up with one bank that said he had defrauded them. In fact, they all said that not only did he not defraud them, he paid them back. Most of them he paid ahead of time on the schedule for the loans that he had taken out. And when he had written down expenses for legal fees, they were actually legal fees. The Tish James funeral should be happening. She should be processing towards her own grave at this point, because what she has done is she has killed the confidence of anybody to ever believe in the Attorney General in the state of New York ever again. That's how bad it was. So Tish James lost to Donald Trump this week spectacularly, losing the $500 million judgment to zero. Judge Engoron needs to be disbarred. He needs to be gotten rid of. But that was just one small sliver, friends, of the legal victories that Donald Trump has had in recent days. He's had huge victories at the Supreme Court. Won another one yesterday. Because people said, you can't take taxpayer money out of these studies that need to be done to show what the impact of DEI and LGBTQ studies are. And he said, you want to watch? And they took it to the Supreme Court. First, he cut them. And then someone filed suit. Said, you can't cut them. He said, no, actually we can. And said, well, we'll sue you. So they sued them. And they got some Obama know-nothing rogue judge on the low level of the slime totem pole to slime his way and to say, no, that's not right. You're not going to be allowed to do that. No. And the president said, okay, fine, we'll go to the Supreme Court. They bumped it up, boom, boom, boom. They get up to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court said yesterday that the Department of Education certainly can slash the money for studies going to look at the effectiveness of DEI and LGBTQ programs in education. They can slash the budgets for those studies, because to date, those studies haven't proven to be worth anything, except employing some people's friends, some people that happen to have very strange ideas about DEI and LGBTQ. We can employ all of the friends that have all the funny beliefs, and then you can put them in charge, and they can point their pencil in the faces of academics and say, you're not allowed to say that. That's not DEI. That's not LGBTQ. We'll get you. Nope. They can do it. They can cut the studies. The studies have been cut. That's it for the studies. There will be no more winning that. So that was another win. He had a third win this week, and this was such a psychological Jedi mind trick that I'm not even sure that half the country still realizes it. But it was only 2 weeks ago that he told the Metro Police Department of Washington, D.C., hey, help's on the way. Help's on the way. We're coming. I'm bringing people. We're bringing resources. We're going to get your city cleaned up. It's only been 2 weeks since that controversial idea. And in 2 weeks now, Washington, D.C. has had an 80% reduction in crime in some categories, 40% in others, 20% in the smallest amounts. But across the board, Washington, D.C. became a safe city overnight because they took off the criminals off the streets. They took the rapists and the murderers and the drug dealers and the fentanyl pimps and everybody else, and they put them behind bars. And Washington, D.C. is tonight a safe city. You can walk your dog in Washington, D.C. tonight and not worry about getting mugged. That's how safe it is. So what did he do on Friday? He said, hey, guys, great job. Here's some pizza. Here's some fun things. Here's some goodies. I don't know Diet Cokes, pizza, burgers. Showed up, said thank you to the guys that have been doing all the work, patted them on the back, and the whole country watched it and went, "Wow, that was fast." You know who else is watching it? Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom's out in the hinterlands in California with cities that are completely dangerous, with crime that's completely out of control, with drugs, fentanyl, with homeless, with all kinds of things all over the place. And just imagine this. When J.D. Vance runs for president in 28, he's going to run on the record of he and President Trump's record. And Gavin Newsom's going to run on that garbage. Literally, he's going to be running on the garbage that's still there because the garbage is there. It's not in D.C. anymore. Kevin McCullough coming right back.
From New York, that Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to Times Square. It's Kevin McCullough, That Kevin Show. Very glad to have you with us. And I'm very glad to welcome Michael Shires from the America Family Policy Institute, America First Policy Institute, because there's much to discuss, even in the midst of all of the kind of world-shaping foreign stuff that's being tackled by the administration this week. There are some things that we need to keep our eyes on in the area of education, and Michael Shires works on that for the AFPI folks, one of our favorite organizations. Michael, welcome. It's good to have you on the show.
It's great to be with you, Kevin.
You've come at this from a lot of different perspectives. You've been on the university campus. You've helped start universities. You've looked at it from a variety of public policy positions. This whole area of higher ed and what needs to be done to reform it, and particularly for those of us that live in the New York City area, we're tired of seeing the garbage that's on our television screens, the protests, the Gaza marches, all the rest. And it did seem like that when the new administration came into office, that there was at least a tentative or tacit acknowledgement from some of the larger institutions that work did need to be done on their end to put into place some reforms. What 200 plus days into the new administration can you trace that's actually worked?
Well, I mean, the first are the headlines, right? It's literally the administration going after things like anti-Semitism and discrimination on campus.
DEI.
Yeah. I mean, DEI is kind of, basically higher ed was left alone for too long. We trusted our higher ed institutions, and they kind of got captured by Marxists along the way. I still remember 1981, during the height of the Cold War, I went to take a political science class at UCLA on U.S.-Soviet relations. And lo and behold, the professor spent the entire first day extolling the virtues of Mother Russia. So this isn't new, but what is new is that over the last 40 years, they've really taken over.
Well, not only have they taken over in the classroom, they've seemed to hijack entire campuses. I mean, even if you're not a poli-sci or public policy major, your educational experience, if you're a Jewish student on the campus of Harvard or Columbia, has been drastically impacted by kind of the out of control, kind of almost monster-like activity that these gangs have put together. And what's scary is here in New York, that's the very group that the man who wants to be mayor of the city next is using as his ground force for his political turnout. I mean, the consequences of letting some of this stuff just kind of go really do have long-term ripple effect.
You're right. And I mean, it used to be in the classroom, and this is what I meant by taking over. I mean, literally, they've taken over the institutions and set the culture and tone, not only the institution, but the accreditors, the professional associations, all of these organizations are broadcasting these messages of basically social Marxism. And so you have this environment now on campus, and this is what President Trump is up against. I mean, even, the Students for Fair Admissions ruling was 2 years ago. And yet, Harvard is still at the epicenter of this conversation. Are you being discriminatory in your admissions? California passed Prop 209, which literally banned the use of race or gender or any other kind of attributes in admissions and hiring and promotions. And yet we see today UCLA is kind of one of the poster children for how egregious this has become.
Why are they so dedicated to this? I mean, I want to assume the best about public education and public educators and higher educators. I want to assume that people that go into that field want to help young people learn and help to mature them to a place where that education actually works for the students' welfare and they're able to put it to use in making a life for themselves. Are we past the point of being able to do that on a well-wished basis because the agenda is so deeply entrenched in these places?
I don't think we're past the point. I mean, we really are at a tipping point right now, though. I mean, this is the time when it has to happen. I mean, we have momentum, we have energy. The administration has been very aggressive. I mean, literally, the basic American value that everybody should be treated equally and consistently, right? I mean, those kinds of things, that everybody should be allowed to express their opinion. The sign of hope on campuses right now is that you have more and more faculty coming out and saying, yeah, I wasn't able to say what I wanted to say. I wasn't able to engage in the conversations I wanted to, and they're taking advantage of that. And the best part about it is the students are loving it. I mean, they're resonating with that. I mean, when we launched the University of Austin, this was literally our mission, was to model this for the world. And what we found was when you put smart students in a classroom together and give them hard ideas to work through, they devour it. They get energized and enlivened by it.
Yeah.
And so it really makes education come to life for the students, as opposed to those old lecture halls where the professor would go up and tell you what's wrong with America and what's wrong, and that you're a victim of everything, and you're taking notes so you can write it on the final.
Our friends over at Campus Reform just did a piece this weekend that is noting that there are a lot of northern students that are choosing southern schools to go to. And I don't think it's just because, I mean, they cite how well the schools are run and sort of some of the glamour and polish of it all. Fun sororities, fun times, et cetera. But I think it goes beyond that. I think it kind of taps into something that you're talking about here. And you're actually seeing a demographic shift of northern grown students wanting to go to school in the South because of it.
Well, in some ways, a lot of them are following their parents south, right? I mean, as people move across the country to get out of places like New York City, which are leaning further and further left. I mean, I'm a former Californian. I've been in Texas the last 3 years, and now I'm in D.C. And you just see what Marxism and this kind of social Marxism does to communities. And, higher ed is following that same demographic. The best part about Southern universities in a lot of these kids' eyes is that the legislature has given them permission to actually have open discourse and dialogues. They don't have to check the woke boxes anymore.
Yeah. There's been some debate in the social commentary realm about how much the administration should themselves be involved in this battle, that it's really, something that should be more decided amongst the populace itself. I'm curious as to your thoughts on that, specifically given the fact that we are so driven by population and we even geography. We want to have the people that are closest to the cause be able to solve the problem. But it seems to me that if the president didn't roll up his sleeves and draw some attention to this and actually get, in the case of Colombia, physically involved and say, no, this is coming to an end, there would have been zero improvement at all. I'm just curious how much of this can be corrected by the population at large.
Well, I mean, they've been left alone for 50 years to self-correct, right? And they haven't. In fact, they've just gotten worse and worse. So the Department of Education has become a vehicle, if you will, for amplifying the message that was corrupting the system. And so, part of what President Trump is dealing with now is, how do I undo all that history and energy?
It's how do you infuse the accountability into the system and everything continue to work. We're speaking with Michael Shires of AFPI. He heads up their higher ed educational work there, and we're coming right back after this break. Stay
Stick around for more of That
Welcome back to That Kevin Show. Glad you're with us. Everything you need at thatkevinshow.com. And I would appreciate it if you would go and register to try to win a trip to come see me. We're going to give one away. Some lucky winner is going to get one after August 31st. And until August 31st, you are invited to do just that. You can, under the promotions tab, just sign up right there at thatkevinshow.com. You know that educational issues and how our kids are treated in the school systems is something that I cover relentlessly here at the Kevin McCullough microphone. And what powers believe they can do to your kids while they're on their watch has gotten more and more bold in recent generations. And during the Biden administration, it kind of reached a all-time fever pitch. Everything from gender ideology to, sequestering kids away with school staff to go get abortions and so forth. And sadly, a couple of important things to discuss along those fronts today. But here to discuss them with me is Melanie Israel, who is a visiting fellow at the Richard and Helen DeVos Center for Life, Religion, and Family at the Heritage Foundation. Heritage, one of our favorite colleagues and comrade in arms, if you will, for the fight for our kids. Melanie, it's great to have you. Welcome to Times Square.
Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
Virginia schools have had some interesting trials in the last year. You've had, particularly in the one county, you had the moms, Muslim moms, Jewish moms, Christian moms came together and said, you can't force us to send our kids to school to read the curriculum about gender ideology and Harry having two mommies and all the rest of it. The school district thought they could, and they kind of acted as though they didn't care. They took them to court, and the moms did win. So there's some good news on that front. But something has happened recently as it pertains to facilitating student abortions. Bring us up to speed on what this is.
Sure. So what we've heard happen is that in Fairfax County public school systems,
same system. This system is trouble.
Exactly. These same people apparently are being accused of helping to facilitate not one abortion, but multiple abortions several years ago. And these allegations are only just now coming to light thanks to, brave people from within the system who are willing to step forward and say something. And what's really disturbing is that we're finding out this is not, just the school system facilitating abortions. It's school systems supposedly facilitating these abortions for minors, children who are underage and under Virginia law cannot consent on their own to even have an abortion in the first place. And so it raises all of these questions. First of all, why is a school system allegedly facilitating these abortions? But how were they even able to happen in the first place if these girls weren't even of age yet to be able to consent to that? So very, very disturbing allegations. Thankfully, Governor Youngkin has pledged to get to the bottom of it and see if this criminal activity may have happened and what we can do about it.
Well, and that just highlights the importance for this year's gubernatorial race in Virginia as well. You wanted an administration that's going to continue through and see through on these investigations and not just kill them when the new team comes into office. And I have a feeling that the divide is so wide between the two leading candidates in that state that that's exactly what would happen. If you have the Republican, you're likely to see these investigations through. If you have the Democrat, it's almost a guarantee that they'll be shut down.
Right. And we've already seen the comments from Fairfax County Public Schools. They say, don't worry, we're looking into it. I think that given their track record, no parent can feel confident that their children are in good hands if they're the only ones looking at it. It really, really does matter that Governor Youngkin and his team are able to look at it on their end. And I want to add to be sure that your listeners understand this, particularly those who are in Virginia, because if Virginia Democrats retake the legislature, they are going to put a ballot measure up for a vote, like we've seen in many of these other states, to basically say you can't have any abortion laws. And that includes things like those existing parental notification and consent requirements. And so elections have consequences. And if things don't go well here moving into the next year, it could be possible that Virginians might wake up one day and a school facilitating an abortion for a minor might not even be against the law anymore.
Yeah, and that's almost inconceivable to comprehend. I need to ask you about a couple of other things related to this. Also, I want to talk with you about Planned Parenthood and the year that it had, because we've made things difficult for them, and I think that's a good thing.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. Here he is from New York. That Kevin. Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back. Great to have you. That Kevin Show. I am That Kevin. It's an odd thing. It's the best we could come up with. But glad you're with us. ThatKevinShow.com for all the social, for all the columns, the TV shows, the radio podcasts, everything. Melanie Israel is my special guest. She's a visiting fellow from Heritage, and she is keeping her eye on some of these life, religion, family issues that we are talking about. And Melanie, this last year, Planned Parenthood had its worst year in quite some time. Now, it didn't have a bad enough year to completely finish them off, which was kind of my goal. But we got closer to it than we've ever gotten before. Give us the details, and how, is there more we can do to try to put this group out of business?
Absolutely. Planned Parenthood has been having a terrible year. We're up to about 40 clinics and counting that have either closed or announced that they are going to be closing soon. And this is happening in red states and blue states. This is not just something that you can, that the left can blame on pro-life laws in pro-life states. It's happening all over the country. And there's a lot of reasons.
Did the big, beautiful bill help, though? I mean, taking the federal dollars out of their hands, all of a sudden they have to pay for the light bill with other things.
Exactly. It made a huge difference because in the One Big Beautiful Bill, they had a provision to defund Planned Parenthood of all of its Medicaid funding for 1 year. And Medicaid, of course, makes up the vast majority of Planned Parenthood's government funding. There's other sources, but this is most of it. And frankly, Planned Parenthood clinics, they are operating on razor thin margins. They do not have the financial flexibility at many of these clinics to not have Medicaid funding for even a year. Any business owner knows that you don't get to just hit the pause button and then pick up where you left off when conditions improve. And so a lot of these clinics are in very dire straits. We can thank the Big Beautiful Bill for that. We had a Supreme Court decision that gave states more flexibility to defund Planned Parenthood. The Trump administration is able to start clawing back some of those other grants that Planned Parenthood gets. But I think your listeners would also be interested in hearing more about some of those under the hood dynamics that are happening in the broader landscape that have been a long time coming. And so these recent policy changes have, in a lot of ways, been accelerating a process that already started a long time ago.
Well, and how does that work?
So if you look back at historic data for Planned Parenthood, they put out an annual report every year. You can see that they have about 1 million fewer contraception clients than they did 20 years ago. They have about 200 fewer clinics and counting than they did 20 years ago. More and more women are getting things like long-acting birth control methods where they're not having to go to clinics, once a month or even once a year. You've got telehealth that's completely changed the game for a lot of people. All of the different minute clinics and urgent cares, people are able to go and get the care they need at a place that doesn't have the same kind of political and social baggage that Planned Parenthood has. And with abortion specifically, the vast majority of abortions, over 50%, are done with abortion pills now, not a surgical procedure. So even in these places where women are still getting abortions in those blue states, it's happening with these abortion pills. Providers send these pills from anywhere in the country through the mail. Women aren't even having to go to Planned Parenthood as often for their abortions anymore. And so there's all of these different dynamics that have been a long time coming for the past 2 decades. And now, with these circumstances of the Big Beautiful Bill taking away this funding and the Trump administration taking action, the Supreme Court it's all kind of converging right now. And frankly, for Planned Parenthood, it's a perfect storm of problems. For women, unborn children, for girls, it's good news because now more people will be able to get real health care somewhere else, not at Planned Parenthood.
It is a perfect storm, and it's an organization that's worthy of every amount of calamity that befalls it. People still don't quite understand the eugenics nature of the organization as it was founded. But if you just do a simple trace of where these clinics have been historically in inner city neighborhoods near largely Black and poorer communities, you still see the kind of legacy of Margaret Sanger coming through in all those ways. I hope that trend continues, and I anticipate that it will. I want to return our conversation to a little bit of the kind of the big picture on all of this that we've talked about, and that is that whether it's Planned Parenthood dealing with a minor, and they've given minors abortions for a long time, and I've seen numbers that say that the average paternal father in the equation of many of the Planned Parenthood procedures has been like a 27-year-old male and a 17-year-old female. That dynamic is in most states considered to be, at least statutorily, a sexual assault or a rape of some sort. And yet Planned Parenthood has for years been able to skate under the rules when the laws are actually quite clear about it. But particularly in blue states, they've been able to do that. And as they have continued their linkage with public schools, and now public schools we're seeing, as we were discussing the last segment, facilitating abortions for minors. And in the last 4 years, the almost perverse, weird way that the Biden administration blackmailed schools. They were going to take away poor kids' breakfasts and lunches if they didn't insist upon DEI and gender identity curriculums being approved and shoved into the school systems. You've had a very big willingness, particularly by the left, to treat children in all kinds of ways, but mostly just as pawns and as pieces of infrastructure for their own agenda and for what they want to accomplish. I've argued this for years, but I think that the left really hates kids. They're not interested in the welfare of children. And when you see all the policies that they stand behind, it kind of seems to resonate with that. But this idea of really kind of brainwashing and taking our kids away from us kind of on the sly during the school day, where do you see this going? And what are some practical steps that parents can take to make sure that their kids are protected?
Well, one thing that's important for people to know as well, it doesn't get discussed quite as often, is that Planned Parenthood is one of the big players in helping to write curriculum that many schools are using. And of course, it's largely more of a blue state problem where Planned Parenthood, they're helping to write the curriculum. They can have their own employees come in to teach it to children. They have hitched their cart to the gender identity horse within the last 10 years to diversify their portfolio. And now they're one of the largest providers of these sterilizing cross-sex hormones of all providers in the country, including to children.
Ready or not, we'll be right back. That Kevin.
Welcome back to That Kevin Show for this weekend. In the New Music Spotlight, for the very first time, a budding bard, if you will, songwriter, storyteller, Max McNown, and Wherever I'm Going.
My honey, my darling, my lover of life, the full moon is rising up soon. You told me you love how the ground meets the sky. You don't see that back home where the grass is all blue. I could stay here forever with you in my arms. You're the coastline and I'm the horizon, and Lord only knows the direction of life. If I said that I did, I'd be lying. 'Cause I don't know where that wild wind is pulling me to, but I know that we're see if you like. We could find us a place, put some roots down upstate, turn all of these clocks Eastern time. 'Cause you keep me tethered like Mustangs and saddles. When the storm's in my head, you're the silence. And Lord only knows the direction of life. If I said that I did, I'd be lying. 'Cause I don't know where that wild wind is pulling me to. But I know that wherever I'm going with you. I'm going with you. And I promise you won't see the day when I walk away and leave you behind. And gambling on love might be strange, but I bet on us every time. 'Cause I don't know where that wild wind is pulling me to. But I know that wherever I'm going with you. Going with you. I know that wherever I'm going with you.
A fresh face in country music. And this weekend with one of the top-rated songs in all of the land, according to Apple Music. Kevin McCullough, that is Max McNown, making his debut appearance in the New Music Spotlight. He joins us again to round out the show next hour. Speaking of which, we've got a big one. Stick around.
Donald, I demand you stop cleaning up Washington, D.C. right now. If you end the homelessness and crime, everyone will know I could have easily done that in California. How am I supposed to run for president in 2028 if everyone knows I never do anything?
Gavin, I had to clean up D.C. It's like a third world country here.
How dare you, Donald? What you're doing is somehow homophobic and fascist.
Instead of wasting my time, why don't you fix those problems in California?
You know damn well if I did that, I'd have nothing to campaign on every 4 years.
Okay, then why don't you at least rebuild the Palisades then? It's been 8 months since the LA fires burned it down.
I would if I had the money.
Well, what happened to the money we gave you?
It's in my pocket right now, and I don't have time to get it out.
Gavin, take the money we sent you out of your pocket and use it to rebuild the Palisades.
You know what? You're being unreasonable. Screw you!
Is everything all right, Gavin?
No. The president's making me look bad. I'm so upset right now I don't feel like fixing California for at least another 4 years.
I know what you mean, Gavin. I've been mayor of Los Angeles for 3 years and still don't feel like doing anything.
Oh my God. I think my fancy wine glasses were delivered. They were a bit expensive, but money hasn't been an issue since I got those fire recovery funds. What the hell is this? Oh, he's done it now. Are you seriously going to run for a third term?
I think so, Gavin. Who knows, I may even run for a fourth term.
That's it, I'm running against you in 2028. I'm going to pretend there's nothing wrong with California, harder than I've ever pretended before.
Somewhere in the bowels of the city that never sleeps,
Kevin McCullough, radio host with Salem Media,
is a man also not sleeping.
Syndicated radio talk show host Kevin McCullough.
And that guy would like a word with you.
Many of you know him as Vox
Of course that Kevin show is going to be great. The only thing that could be greater, of course, would be that Donald show. We don't have that, so we have that Kevin show.
Featuring the music of Dick Tunney and the Dream in Color Orchestra. And still to come, Andrea Mew of the Independent Women's Forum fighting to protect children that others have harmed. Harry Abrahamsen with Money Rules That You Need to Know. Sketch comedy from Al Berry. And yes, the return of woke Jesus. And making his debut in the New Music Spotlight, once again, Max McNown. And now from Times Square, where the left keeps lawfare alive, Trump keeps notching victories, 3 in a row just this last week. Here's the Kevin!
For a Simon Desk Weekend, I'm Kevin McCullough. Judge Arthur Engoron, the man who fined Trump $500 million for allegedly exaggerating real estate values, has now had the book literally thrown at him. Actually, multiple books. Apparently frustrated, readers in his courtroom decided the only way to respond to Engoron's 800-page rulings was to treat them like dodgeballs. The judge is fined, but he's reportedly filing a restraining order against hardcover editions of Tom Clancy novels. Meanwhile, the Democratic Party has found a new enemy, Cracker Barrel. Yes, the Tennessee-based restaurant chain changed its logo, and suddenly Gavin Newsom and his pals are treating it like a hate crime. Apparently, nothing unites progressives like the fear that America might enjoy chicken fried steak without government supervision. In Washington, a business owner is upset because Trump's federal crime crackdown, which has removed fentanyl, gangs, weapons from the streets of D.C., is hurting his profits. You heard it right. The city's finally safe, but apparently he's mad because fewer criminals are shopping in his store. If only Jesse James were still robbing trains, the guy could have made a fortune selling him discount ski masks. On foreign policy, Trump pulled off a stunning diplomatic win this week by brokering a pact between Azerbaijan and Armenia, a deal that also delivered a punch to Iran. Biden once promised to restore America's standing in the world. Trump, on the other hand, is restoring Armenia's ability to stand and delivering a left hook to Tehran. On the domestic comedy circuit, Kamala Harris is on a nationwide tour to promote a book, except the audiences think it's a comedy routine. Who knew that explaining Venn diagrams could be a headliner act? One audience member said, "I laughed, I cried, I finally understood why I'll never vote for." Not to be outdone, a rock star who nobody's listened to since the Reagan era had a meltdown after the White House called him washed up. In response, he screamed that Trump is a low-life fascist. Translation, Spotify won't play his music, so he's going to audition for CNN. In federal court in Florida, a judge has blocked Trump from expanding Alligator Alcatraz immigration detention facility. Progressives say the facility is cruel because detainees can see actual alligators outside. Conservatives say it's a feature, not a bug. Elsewhere, a Pennsylvania city just scrapped its immigrant protection sanctuary status after realizing that the Trump deportation order means deportations. At the Supreme Court, Trump scored another victory this week. The NIH medical grants for DEI and LGBTQ studies are being slashed. Activists say this will set back progressives. Conservatives say it'll finally give cancer a chance at the wheel. And finally, AI tools might weaken doctors' ability to detect colon cancer, but don't worry, the upside is they'll be better at detecting pronouns. For a Simon Desk Weekend, I'm Calvin McCullough.
Blessed are those who virtue signal, for they shall be seen as righteous without actually having to do anything. It totally rocks. Blessed are those who are part of powerful Democrat families, but they will not be prosecuted. Hunter, I'm talking to you. I got your back. Full pardon, buddy. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have eternal life. Or you can believe in Buddha, or Muhammad, or Oprah. You have heard it said, "Thou shalt not steal." But I say unto you, unless it is merchandise worth more than $949, then go ahead. These companies have insurance, you know. Or you believe in Confucius, or Joseph Smith, or L. Ron Hubbard, or Tom Cruise. Wherever two or more are gathered, I am there also. separated by at least 6 feet for safety. So, too close, woman. We're all in this together. Mary Baker Eddy, Joel Osteen, or those bald fellows that used to come up at the airports and ask for donations. Whatever happened to them? Man does not live by bread alone, but by oatmeal lattes, Beyond Meat, and ethically sourced crickets. Clear. It's good for the climate, and it's surprisingly tasty.
No, I just had lunch.
It tastes like fried chicken. You've heard it said, "Thou shalt not kill." But I say unto you, if you murder a CEO in cold blood, bravo. Good for you. Do not worry about tomorrow. For tomorrow, the government will take care of you with Social Security and Medicare. Render unto Caesar what is Caesar's. But render reparations to anyone that your ancestors might have harmed, whether directly or indirectly, hundreds of years ago, even though everyone was kind of enslaved to everyone else at some point in history, but just do it. It makes sense. Blessed are those who don't feel like working, for they will be given free money. I think it's called UBI. Might be pronounced Doobie or UB something. I have no idea, but it's great. Well, Sigmund Freud, Charles Darwin, Molech, Baal, Dagon. Or you could believe in yourself. Except for you, Steve. Kind of a mess. Sorry. If anyone would come after me and be my disciple, you must count the cost. For you will be adored by the media, celebrated by Hollywood, and even cherished by the universities. It's fantastic, honestly. The way you know you're doing Christianity right is if everyone loves you. It is the best. Why do you look at the speck of dust in your brother's eye and ignore the plank in your own? Because Orange Man bad. 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 Sell all you have and give to the poor. Just kidding. I'm just kidding. That's what taxes are for. It's just outsource your charity to them, you know. You don't have to do anything. Come on. We should have seen the looks on your faces. That was really good. Oh, classic. Classic.
Ready or not, he'll be right back. That Kevin. Back to That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to Times Square. It's That Kevin Show, thatkevinshow.com for everything related to what we talk about. Podcasts, columns at Town Hall, TV shows, everything. It's all there. Please check it out. My next guest is the managing editor of Independent Women's Features, and they are continuing on a series that was started by a colleague of hers some time ago and a regular contributor to my show. Kelsey Bowler was here for years. As you know, she's moved into mommyhood, and as is the right thing to do, mommyhood takes precedence. But that doesn't mean that the work of independent women is any way lessened, because Andrea Mew has stepped into the managing editor's position here, and she's continuing even on the specific series, Identity Crisis, which was something that Kelsey started and had a lot of passion for. And we were one of the first media outlets to ever champion it, and we still continue to be, because we believe in the mission of independent women so strongly. Andrea, it's good to have you back. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me on again, Kevin.
The whole idea of identity ideology, gender ideology being foisted upon the public school system is something that the president and his campaign in 24 really took on headfirst and said he was going to do something about it. And it wasn't just the way the schools were behaving. It was also the inclusion of boys in female locker rooms and sports and everything else. It was a much bigger issue than just the gender ideology itself. But this is still an issue, and there are still schools, and there are still educators, and there are still public officials that seem to be ignoring what is now law and still trying to get away with it. And so you guys are still championing this issue and still talking about it. You said before we got on the air, with a little bit of a curve to it. What do you see before we get into this specific story? What do you see as the future on this issue? Is there fight still to be fought here?
Kevin, the biggest future issue that we're going to have to tackle is how we are taking care of detransitioners, the people who escaped gender ideology and are now kind of honestly politically homeless and left with a lot of lasting medical implications as well as psychological implications to their bodies. We have been speaking with several detransitioners over the year. As you mentioned before, our Identity Crisis series was started in 2022 by my colleague Kelsey Bolar, but we continue our reporting on the detransitioners and have recently started highlighting the stories of a lot of their parents who are actually willing to speak out about how they were conned by the gender industry and how in some cases, they were manipulated into affirming, but in other cases, they were able to successfully push back. Now, the latter, being able to successfully push back, is the key point of our most recent story that we put out, our documentary on Luke Healy and his mother, Michelle Rogers. Michelle Rogers was a nurse for about 3 decades, still is a nurse, and she never understood why medical professionals were trying to put her son on hormones and why her son wanted to pursue surgeries. And so she was able to successfully push back up until Luke himself was able to, at age 18, access hormones. Thankfully, he never did undergo any surgeries, but now the two of them are speaking out together because he came to the other side after realizing it was all a lie, finding faith. And his mom is key to him having been able to detransition and not have lasting repercussions like many of the detransitioners do.
Yeah. I remember when Kelsey and company launched the series, we did an evening kind of awareness spreading here in New York City. And several people came and told their stories. Several of the detransitioners that have gone on to tell their story and on a lot of different venues told them to us that night for the first time. And as someone who kind of is, I would say, more than tacitly aware of this issue, I cover it fairly in depth with independent women and other groups. I was still blown away that night with the level of abuse that these young people underwent, when in reality, psychological help on other issues in their life would have been far more appropriate and far more healthy and beneficial. After damage is done with hormones, after damage is done with permanent types of treatment like surgery and other things, it is almost impossible to get your life back, even if you get to a healthy spot. And it just broke my heart, Andrea, to see how these young, tender lives had kind of just been crushed by these people that, under the guise of caring for them, had done exactly the opposite.
You're absolutely right, Kevin. And Prisha Mosley, an ambassador at Independent Women and one of the detransitioners we've been featuring for years and working with for years, both in advocacy and media, spreading her story. She was thankfully able to get pregnant after all of what had happened to her, but still experienced some severe complications during her pregnancy due to the extended years of hormones and due to the surgery she had undergone. It's especially common for the women who undergo these surgeries. They struggle with being able to breastfeed. If they do get pregnant, they might suffer from clogged milk ducts because certain parts of the female anatomy were removed, but not all of them. And so the body wants to naturally start producing what it's meant to produce after you have your child, and it just can't. And Prisha, thankfully, has been continuing to advocate and work with people across the country to see if there's any way that people like her can find a sense of retribution after all of this. And there may be some progress with her lawsuit about being able to rethink the statute of limitations, especially for detransitioners. As so many of them, the statute of limitations, if they were able to sue, tends to expire before they even realize that there was so much harm done.
There's so much wrong with that. And I've got to ask you more about that in just a second. I do want to say that Prisha was one of the people that were there with us that night. And she openly questioned that night if she would ever be able to get pregnant. And so it's good news to my ears that she was able to, although I'm sorry that she's still undergoing that level of complexity. We're speaking with Andrea Mew of Independent Women's Features. She's the managing editor there. And this series called Identity Crisis is a very in-depth, multiple episode serial on the issue of gender transition and detransitioning. And we're going to continue with this discussion because most of the time we've talked about its effect on young girls. There is a young boy that we're going to highlight and his pain in that process. And we'll talk about that on the other side of this break. If you miss any of this and you want to go re-listen to it, go to thatkevinshow.com. If you want to see what Andrea's working on, you go to Independent Women's Features. What's the website? What's the quick URL to that, Andrea?
iwfeatures.com.
That's what I thought. It's IW for Independent Women Features. Spell it out, iwfeatures.com, and you'll be able to see all of the things that they are working on. But lots of firsthand, very powerful firsthand account that you just can't argue with any other way. These things really did happen and are happening, and we need to put a stop to them. Coming right back from New York. Stay with us, Kevin McCullough.
Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to Times Square, and on this spectacular weekend, thank you for being here and for spending part of your time with us. I never take it for granted. And it's kind of like this contest that we're running right now across the Salem network. I would like to say thank you to you for all of the wonderful things that you've done for me. And you could win a chance to come to New York on my dime and see the city and come see the show and maybe even have dinner with me. We would love to make this possible. If you go to thatkevinshow.com or if you go to thatpassportlife.com, you'll see a way that you can enter and vote for me. You'll see this little thing that says win an experience with your favorite talker, and I would be very grateful for your votes regardless. If you've not signed up yet for the newsletter, by the way, you can do that as well at thatkevinshow.com. And on the contest, you can enter every single day up through August 17th. On August 17th, we cut it all off, and then we draw the name, and you could potentially win a 3-night stay, airfare included, and a $500 Visa card by just entering the Talkers contest. So I would be deeply grateful if you would do that, and very, very much unexpected in terms of the graciousness that you always pour out. But I do want to say thank you for one other thing. We have now, because of your steadiness and faithfulness, we have now crossed the 51 slave liberation mark in our drive towards 208 slaves to be liberated this year. And this is especially important, and not for me and not for you. It's especially important for the women that we are rescuing from these heinous circumstances where they have been stripped of all dignity and all privacy and all of the many other things that you cherish when you have a life that you get to live under your own determination. But these women lost that right a long time ago. And your gift of $250 not only sets them free, more importantly, it gives them everything they need to return to their life and to start over again through our friends at Christian Solidarity International. That $250, it's supplying food for a year, it's supplying grain for another year beyond that, it's supplying utensils for them to cook, clean, and fish with, it's supplying a little she-goat that she can use to harvest milk and cheese, and then also breed so that she can have a little source of micro-enterprise. And I'd be so grateful if you dial 888-342-1010, 888-342-1010, and join us.
My name is Nanya Newt. I was about 15 years old when I was captured. My mom had spent the last few days teaching me all about what it meant to be a good wife and a mom, showing me how to cook and sew. She had hoped I would get married in the future. One day I was out collecting firewood, and that was when the Arabs found me and captured me and took me to Sudan without the chance to tell my family goodbye. It took me many days to walk the complete journey. They gave us boiled sorghum as we went, and the men that had been captured with us faced grave dangers. They were considered to be spies, and most of them were killed right in front of us. Upon arrival in the north, I was sold to a master in Miriam village, and then I was sold almost as quickly to another Arab in Magalagate. He made me work for his family, sweeping the compound and washing the dishes. They worked me long and terrible hours, pounding sorghum, fetching water. And then they said in order to be a good Muslim woman, I would need to be circumcised. I was held down as it happened, and then I was forced to marry. Against my will, they forced me to work even when I was sick. And if I did anything that made them angry, they would beat me. My master never bought me any clothes, never paid me for any of my work, and barely ever fed me. Then one day, I heard about a CSI retriever, and I ran to find him in the town. As it turned out, they were freeing slaves in my region, and they had not known about me. But I think God allowed me to find them because they brought me home. We walked that same journey back to South Sudan. And today I thank God because I am free. I thank the Arab retriever because he helped. I thank CSI and for those who gave. I cannot thank those of you who gave money to help us become free ever enough in all of my life. But I do hope that my prayer is answered, that we will not stop until they are all free.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. Here he is from New York. That Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to Times Square. Kevin McCullough chatting a little money today. You know, money is one of those things where I believe if you're a steward of life, if God has given you the opportunity to have a life on this planet, you're going to be put in charge of different things. And so when you have kids, their welfare. If you have a marriage, the cultivation of that relationship. If you run a business, the integrity and the stewardship with which you guide that business to success. These are all things that are put under your stewardship. Something that I think a lot of people forget about is that money has to be handled, and and if you don't handle it well, you will handle it badly. But the vacuum will not exist. You will go in one way or the other. And so one of the things I find to be helpful is to talk to people that know a lot about the laws and rules and how money works and so forth. And my guest, Harry Abrahamsen, has done that in this book, 9 Rules to Massive Wealth. It's called Money Rules, and I want you to get a copy of it. But Harry, let's talk about some of these concepts that you talk in the book. And again, I just got my copy, so I haven't been through all of it as of yet. But we were talking about micro versus macro in the last segment. And you title the next chapter, Moving into to Macro. I'm guessing it's a process, going from the wealth collection to understanding the universe to putting a system in place that now allows you to do just that. What is that process like?
So in that chapter, there's a bunch of strategies that you can kind of implement based on wherever you're at in your life. So I try to put in things of interest where people might say, I'll give you an example of one of them is, taking an IRA and transferring it to the next generation. Well, they got rid of the stretch IRA. That used to be one of the tactics that people would use to pass on wealth from one generation to another. That's no longer the case. And so there are things you can do to accomplish the same thing by looking at different vehicles, different types of advisors, and different ways to maybe pass on that wealth or that IRA in ways that maybe they're not typically discussed in a traditional fashion.
Yeah.
And so one of the concepts in the book, and again, everybody's very different. So this situation is a generic concept, but people can put IRA money, which is taxable money, into a product that can generate a guaranteed stream of income that can be used to pay a premium inside of a trust, where then that money can pass to the next generation tax-free. So you can take an IRA and technically pass it on to that next generation. Obviously talking to a lawyer, talking to a CPA, talking to an insurance professional, and having your investment advisor all in that same room, like a board of directors, to coordinate that kind of a concept. So there's things like that are in the book that people can tap into and at least explore and go, oh, that's a pretty interesting idea,
Well, there are lots of those that people don't think about. And I think a lot of times, Harry, people are so busy just living their lives that they really do have to be, I would say, quite intentional about doing what you're talking about here. But it is something that they should do because kind of regardless of where you're at on the wealth scale, you want to be improving in terms of your stewardship of what you've worked hard for. That's just common sense. If you've worked hard to accumulate it, you should work hard to preserve it and to allow it to do what it needs to do. You talk about investing with intention. What exactly does that get defined as?
So, when you're looking at an investment and managing expectations of a return, right? So you have to be mindful of the fact of if your goal is to get 8% or 10%, wherever you are, typically, when you're working, you can take on a little bit more risk. But you want to be able to be mindful, like, hey, maybe you got, 10% last year. That's a pretty good return. Now, you're either going to be on the winning side or the losing side of that conversation because of your expectations. If you felt I wanted to get 14% and I only got 10, so you want to be really mindful. If you have a good year or you're going through the year, like this year with the tariffs that came out and a lot of people's accounts and portfolios reacted accordingly. You just have to look at, okay, how did I do this year? Is this okay? And then as you get older, if you have accumulated enough money and wealth, you have to ask yourself the question is how much risk do you really need to take? Is it really worth something bad happening that can impact your lifestyle later on? And so you want to be mindful of it. You want to be managing your own expectations of the outcome. And I think that's really the crux of that part of the chapter in terms of investing with intention.
Well, it's interesting because in the money and math chapter, you actually walk through a scenario where you take $100,000 and have a great year, 50% return. And you have another great year, 50% return a year after that, but you have a bad year in the middle, and you can only be up 16% after 3 years and after those great returns. So it is something that you've got to be aware of. Just in the closing seconds, what is the first step? If someone is listening to us and they say, I want to know and understand more. I know you do webinars. But what's the first step that you would recommend someone listening to us and wanting to take more ownership into this, the money rules and understanding them completely? What's the first recommendation?
So I would recommend to read the book, especially get into the tactics. And then the next thing that you want to do is you want to have intelligent conversations with professionals in each of their micro area. Take the time and speak to people. I find that people that have accumulated wealth, significant wealth, will always take the time to talk, right? And if you have something to say, they'll listen. If you don't, the conversation's done. So the next step would be to obviously get a handle on some of the topics and concepts, and then talk to people, talk to professionals, and have a real open dialogue and say, hey, I'm kind of interested in this. What do you think? And then you'll learn from those people, those micros that are out there. That's probably the best thing I can, tell people in terms of advice.
Yeah. If people want to participate in your webinar, how do they go about that?
They can contact us. We have a YouTube channel, Retire with Harry. They can send us a message. They can check us out on the website and let us know. We do weekly, always very timely, and it's very, very laser focused on retirement planning strategies and ideas.
Great. Harry Abrahamsen, thank you for taking time out for us today. I hope that we help people, and I look forward to talking to you again in the future.
Thank you so much.
Be well. Kevin McCullough coming back from Times Square. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to That Kevin Show as we round out this weekend's edition. Max McNown back in the spotlight and this side of heaven.
Mother said life ain't paradise, but there'll be battles worth fighting for, and there'll be love to find before you die. And I know, and you know that you know for sure. And I don't got a whole lot of years behind me, but I don't want one more second lonely, baby. 'Cause days and nights ain't no kind of living. You're as good as it gets on this side of heaven. When it's you and I, there's nothing I'm missing. You're as good as it gets on this side of heaven. A lot of settling for second best, leaving my hopes on the hardwood floor. And now with you I find a place that I can rest and wake up a better man than I was before. And I don't got a whole lot of years behind me, I can't take one more second lonely, baby. And those days and nights ain't no kind of living. You're as good as it gets on this side of heaven. When it's you and I, there's nothing I'm missing. You're as good as it gets on this side of heaven. You're as good as it gets on this side of heaven. side of heaven. When it's you and I, there's nothing I'm missing. You're as good as it gets on this side of heaven. You're as good as it gets on this side of heaven. You're as good as it gets. gets on this side of heaven. You're as good as it gets on this side of heaven. You're as good as it gets on this side of heaven. You're as good as it gets on this side of heaven. You're as good as it gets on this side of heaven. You're as good as it gets on this side of heaven. You're as good as it gets on this side of heaven. You're as good as it gets on this side of heaven. You're as good as it gets on this side of heaven. You're as good as it gets on this side of heaven. You're as good as it gets on this side of heaven. You're as good as it gets on this side of heaven. You're as good as it gets on this side of heaven. You're as good as it gets on this side of heaven. You're as good as it gets on this side of heaven. You're as good as it gets on this side of heaven. You're as good as it gets on this side of heaven. You're as good as it gets on this side of heaven. You're as good as it gets on this side of heaven. You're as good as it gets on this side of heaven. You're as good as it gets on this side of heaven. You're as good as it gets on